One of modern football's prevailing mysteries surrounds the build-up to the 1998 World Cup final in Paris. The host nation were up against perennial challengers Brazil, with hopes of winning their first ever World Cup title. But there was one man that the French feared more than any other: Ronaldo Luis Nazario de Lima.
Le passement de Ronaldo de jambes, il est que d'un côté, c'est-à-dire il fait ça et il entraîne toujours du droit, jamais de l'autre côté. C'est-à-dire qu'il fait son passement du gauche.
J'aime pas ça. De toute façon, à Milan, il l'a fait. La balle, tu la vois plus. Donc, qu'il part à droite ou à gauche, la balle, tu la vois plus. Je te jure, il fait fou. La balle, elle est où? C'est un magicien.
Comme ça, il reste comme ça. Tu regardes, plus de ballon. Le ballon, il est de côté.
C'est même monsieur, comment t'as fait, monsieur? Tu peux me la refaire? Et il en fait une. T'es comme ça tout le match. Non, t'es comme ça tout le match.
Non, regarde, premier truc, franchement, s'il est comme ça, tu le fais pas
faut pas te coller.
Non, ouais, parce que lui, tu sais ce qu'il fait?
Il se sert de toi.
Il attend, et puis comme il est comme costaud,
Ouais.
il se retourne. Ce que tu fais, tu l'empêches de se retourner. Parce que quand il est retourné, c'est là qu'il est dangereux.
Ouais, c'est ça, c'est ça.
Ou tu fais ton intervention
Bien sûr.
en sachant que t'as quelqu'un derrière,
Ou si j'ai
tu
personne,
sais, t'es prêt à accélérer dans le sens contraire.
Mais attends, mais normalement, quand il sort de Marseille, il faut que toi, t'aies le ballon. Hein.
Et Bébéto, j'arrive pas à le déchiffrer.
Bah lui,
Plutôt, c'est
J'arrive pas à le
une
déchiffrer.
bah c'est pas un, à mon avis c'est un mec qui est là dans les 18 cet enculé.
Ronaldo was coming off a 34-goal debut season with Inter Milan and had been on the score sheet 4 times on the road to the final. In the build-up to the game, his name dominated headlines as can be expected. However, on the day of the match, his name was on everyone's tongues for a different reason. The starting teams had been submitted, and the world's best player was missing. Starting in his place was the substitute striker Edmundo. The unofficial reason for his absence was given as an ankle injury he had reportedly picked up against the Dutch in the previous round. Cue pandemonium as broadcasters and fans begin looking for answers. Then, shortly before kickoff, Brazil submitted an amended team sheet. Edmundo returned to the bench, and Ronaldo was leading the line. Such a rapid recovery from injury raised more than a few eyebrows. It was obvious something was wrong, and this feeling was further exacerbated when the Brazilian team never came out onto the pitch for their warm-up. When the Brazilians finally did emerge, it was alongside the French, hand in hand, with Ronaldo trailing behind the rest. It didn't take long for the world to see that Ronaldo was clearly unfit, but all anyone had heard of was this reported ankle injury. There was to be no glory for Brazil or Ronaldo that night, and the talismanic striker looked a shadow of his imperious normal self as Zidane led France to a 3-0 victory. It wasn't until the Brazilian inquest following the 1998 final that the public found out about Ronaldo's convulsive fit mere hours before the game. When the public found out, the obvious question was asked: why did Ronaldo play in the game? Soon, conspiracy theories started circulating about what had actually happened on that day in Paris. The main conspiracy comes from Edmundo, Ronaldo's teammate, and the man who was named ahead of him in the original team sheet for the final. Edmundo claims to have seen Ronaldo's fit after being alerted by Roberto Carlos, and watched as Ronaldo was taken away to hospital. He suggests that it was Nike who made sure that Ronaldo played that final, saying Nike's people were there 24 hours a day, as if they were members of the technical staff. It's a huge power, that's all I can say. This conspiracy theory received further fuel when it was found out that Ronaldo had a clause in his Nike contract stating that he has to play for the country once every 2 years, otherwise it becomes null and void. While such a clause will clearly have had little impact on him playing in the final, it demonstrates the power which the sportswear brand had over him at the time. Many across the world believe this theory too. After all, Brazil had signed a £105 million contract with Nike, the biggest ever sponsorship deal with the national team for the time, practically granting them ownership over the team, and there was no way that Nike would leave starboy Ronaldo on the sidelines. Instead, they had him out on the pitch, leading to this now infamous photo. A differing conspiracy suggests that Ronaldo had a nervous breakdown during the World Cup. This theory suggests that Ronaldo was displaying signs of depression a week before the final, and on the eve of the game had a nervous crisis. Team doctor Lidio Toledo then entered the room and left crying. Ronaldo wasn't medicated due to doping concerns. The conspiracy then goes on to claim that technical coordinator Zico didn't want Ronaldo to play, and that the team's silent departure from the hotel and absence of warm-up was due to a fight between the players. One group, allegedly led by Dunga, backed Ronaldo, while another, said to be led by Leonardo, opposed it. The combination of Ronaldo's nervous crisis and the breakdown between the players is said to have caused the defeat. One of the more out there conspiracies alleges that Brazil reportedly sold the World Cup to FIFA for a cash fee of $23 million. The thinking behind this was to let France win to please new FIFA president Sepp Blatter and help the French people forget about their social problems in the country. In return, FIFA then promised Brazil that the Seleção would have an easier route to winning the 2002 World Cup, and that Brazil would host a World Cup in the next decade. As the years went on, the conspiracies continued to pile up. An official inquest was even launched in Brazil in order to get to the bottom of things. Nike bore the brunt of public blame, but despite the inquest, the Brazilian parliament were unable to find any wider conspiracy. When Ronaldo himself was asked about what happened,
Em 98, depois do almoço, eu resolvi descansar e a última coisa que eu lembro é indo para a cama e depois eu tive aquela convulsão. Na hora que eu acordei, tinha outros jogadores e o Dr. Lídio Toledo estava do meu lado. Ninguém quis contar o que tinha acontecido. Eu perguntei se eles, inclusive, não podiam conversar em outro lugar, porque eu estava ali descansando. De repente me chama o Léo para dar um passeio no jardim do hotel que a gente estava. E aí ele me contou o ocorrido e dizendo já que eu estaria fora da final da Copa do Mundo. Todos esses exames essenciais foram feitos, não foi comprovado nada. É como se eu não tivesse tido aquela convulsão. E depois dos exames fomos em direção ao estádio, aparentemente com o recado do Zagallo que eu já não jogaria, mas eu com os exames na mão e com o Lídio Toledo me dando o aval, eu cheguei para ele, para o Zagallo no estádio e falei, olha, eu estou bem, não tenho nada, os exames estão aqui, eu quero jogar. Praticamente não dei uma escolha a ele, ele aceitou e joguei. Talvez eu tenha condicionado a outros jogadores pela própria convulsão em si, que deve ter sido algo assustador, né? Não é algo que a gente assiste todos os dias, mas de qualquer maneira eu não queria faltar com o meu país, faltar com a minha honra, e eu sentia que eu tinha condições de jogar. Não foi uma das melhores partidas da minha vida, mas de qualquer maneira eu estava lá para fazer o meu papel.
Ronaldo felt he had an obligation to his country and he didn't want to miss it. According to Ronaldo, the only one putting pressure on him was himself, but I'm not sure that's the story people want to believe. 4 years after the events of 1998, Brazil would return to the World Cup final, and this time would emerge victorious against the Germans, banishing many of the ghosts from their previous attempt. But the one ghost that couldn't be banished was exactly what happened throughout that day, and it's unlikely that it's a ghost that ever will be banished.